Crack ships are usually treated like the punchline of fandom culture, a joke you scroll past, a pairing you laugh at, and a tag you don't take seriously. But that completely misses the point of what crack ships truly are. Crack ships are not accidents, they're not mistakes, they're a deliberate response to how fans relate to media, to authority, and to each other. Sometimes you gotta stick it to the man by making Pomni Digital Circus give the ghoul from Fallout a fat kiss on the lips. So we're gonna talk about how important crack shipping is to fandom culture as a whole, and talk about some of y'all's favorites. Firstly, to understand crack ships, you need to understand that fandoms have never been about obedience to canon. Long before the days of internet ship wars, fans were already rewriting stories in ways creators never intended. In the late 1960s and early 1970s, Star Trek fans circulated printed fanzines that paired Kirk and Spock romantically, and these early slash stories were not just about romance, they were about ownership. Fans were asserting that once a story hits public imagination, public domain, these stories become something you can play with, you can reshape, you can reinterpret. So there's this dude named Henry Jenkins, and he's a media scholar. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's written like 20 books, but considering Gen Z literacy rates, it would make sense if you didn't. But he's a really important dude. He described the behavior of creating your own meanings, communities, and rewriting fiction to reshape and reinterpret as textual poaching. Fans don't consume stories passively. They take pieces of them, remix them, and build them into something new. This framework matters because crack shipping only makes sense once plausibility stops being the point. We don't actually start to hear the word crack shipping until the mid-90s, because that's when this participatory instinct gains a name, specifically in the X-Files fandom. So in the X-Files fandom, particularly in Usenet groups like alt.tv.xfiles, fans argued over Mulder and Scully's romantic potential, and they began calling themselves relationshippers. Relationshippers inevitably shortened to shippers, which we still use today, obviously, but these early fans were arguing over eye contact, dialogue subtext, narrative structure, the same shit that Voltron fans used to argue over. Time is a flat circle, baby. Shipping is framed as interpretation. Even controversial ships are defended as readings of the text, because at the time there was no canon, there was no headcanons, it was merely how the reader or watcher interpreted the story. The late 90s and early 2000s are where this logic starts to fracture, because fandoms were moving onto platforms like fanfiction.net and LiveJournal, and this means the pace of interaction is starting to accelerate. Fans are no longer just writing stories for themselves and a few friends, they are reacting to each other in real time. Inside this environment is where the term crack starts to circulate. We can trace crackfics back to the early 2000s because they were abandoning realism, tone, and restraint on purpose. These stories were exaggerated, they were chaotic, and they were labeled or tagged in these fanfictions as written on crack, which means obviously everything was left at the door. Logic, canon, it's all over there. Once a fandom has a shared language for absurdity, it becomes inevitable that this applies to shipping. Crack ships don't appear fully formed. They start as jokes in author's notes, ironic tags, and community memes. In the early 2000s, Harry Potter fans were pairing characters who never even interacted, who existed on opposite ends of the moral spectrum, and who didn't even technically qualify as characters in a traditional sense, like we're talking the giant squid, ex-Hogwarts castle. The pairing is ironic because it wasn't meant to be popular, it was meant to fuck around. Unfortunately, Harry Potter was very important to crack shipping becoming more mainstream in the early 2000s, so off principle, I gave y'all the cliff notes for the sake of my information being correct, but like, I like trans people. J.K. Rowling's gonna be like, Netanyahu, kill this guy right now, Netanyahu laser. Around 2003 to 2006, crack shipping stops becoming incidental and becomes intentional. LiveJournal communities like Very Wrong Slash formalize this concept. Very Wrong Slash isn't about accidentally odd pairings, it's about creating the wrongness in and of itself. This community is meant to curate pairings that are designed to shock you, confuse you, amuse you, crossing genres, tones, media types. This is where crack shipping starts to crystallize as a genre. There's no more failed serious ships. They're ships whose absurdity is the entire appeal of the ship. This moment is also when crackships take on a really important role, because by the mid-2000s, shipping wars were entrenched, canon ships were dividing fandoms, rare pairs were sparking defensiveness, crackships cut through that tension. You can't meaningfully argue about a pairing that exists as satire. I mean, technically you can. Again, Pomni and the Ghoul? You can't argue with me about Pomni and the Ghoul. Crackshipping is like a pressure valve. And historically, that holds up because when fandom discourse becomes rigid and hostile, crackshipping reintroduces humor and flexibility. Then Tumblr waltzed in, and we start reaching crackshipping uncharted territory. We're ramping it up here, y'all. With Tumblr's rise in popularity in the late 2000s, early 2010s, it removes nearly all barriers of participation. A crackship doesn't need a fic. It doesn't need a community. It doesn't need an explanation. Tumblr's culture rewards association over argument. Characters are paired because they share a color palette, a narrative role, an emotional vibe. This is where crackshipping shifts from parody into experimentation. Then enter Rise of the Brave Tangled Dragons. This fandom is the clearest example of this transformation, because on paper, pairing characters from Rise of the Guardians, How to Train Your Dragon, Tangled, and then later Frozen is pure crack. Different studios, different genres, and different audiences, but Tumblr, they begin drawing connections anyway. The earliest roots of this can be traced back to late 2012 and early 2013, immediately following the release of Rise of the Guardians in November of 2012. Jack Frost, obviously, very quickly became a Tumblr sexy man. He's visually distinctive, emotionally isolated, and positioned as a misunderstood outsider figure, all traits that Tumblr fandoms historically gravitate towards. At the same time, How to Train Your Dragon had already established Hiccup as a similar archetype. Fan art pairing Jack Frost and Hiccup began circulating almost immediately, initially framed as a joke, but often tagged explicitly as on crack. We were doing crack when we were 11, baby. What allows their ship to gain traction is not through any narrative logic, obviously, but they have similar visuals and similar themes. Both characters are pale, slim youngins with trauma, and associated with non-traditional forms of power. They both are framed as underestimated, emotionally vulnerable, and burdened with the responsibility that they didn't ask for. Side-by-side gifs, mirrored poses, and color palette comparisons circulate rapidly, creating this sense of coherence that has nothing to do with canon. Nothing about crackshipping has to do with canon. With the release of Frozen in late 2013, it fundamentally changes this fandom. Elsa, in particular, becomes a cultural lightning rod. Her narrative of repression, fear of her own power, and emotional withdrawal instantly resonates with a lot of people, especially the Tumblr girlies, especially 12-year-old Sky. Almost immediately, people were like, Jack Frost? Hiccup? Get this yaoi shit out of here. We need more straights. Jack Frost, you need to give Elsa a kiss on the lips. They're both associated with ice, winter imagery, loneliness, and being feared for abilities they can't fully control, because the pairing of Jack and Elsa, Jelsa, if you will, I won't, initially spreads ironically, and they're like from different studios, they're from different genres, they're for different intended audience. Guys, Jack Frost is for big sexy bitches, and Frozen is for little baby chudlings. It's ironic. Irony, my friend. Irony, my friend, does not remain stable in fandom spaces. That's the equivalent of pretending you have a piss kink for a joke and then developing a piss kink. At this point, Rise of the Brave Tangled Dragons expands into Rise of the Brave Tangled Frozen Dragons, and what's crucial here is that this fandom doesn't function like a traditional crossover fandom would. This fandom doesn't try and reconcile canon timelines or studio lore. Instead, it's operated on archetypes. Jack Frost is not just Jack Frost, he's a lonely immortal. Elsa is not just Elsa, she's a restrained power figure. Hiccup is a reluctant innovator. Rapunzel is the emotionally resilient optimist. Characters become modular symbols that can be rearranged to explore different emotional dynamics, but everyone has their set role and set archetype. This is where crackship culture becomes a little less niche and a bit more crazy. What begins as visual jokes turns into an entire ecosystem. Fans create shared universes where guardians from different mythologies can coexist. Dragons and magic are normalized. Modern AUs strip characters of their original contexts entirely. It's not ironic anymore, just like that piss kink. These characters are emotionally sincere, angsty, explicitly romantic, and deeply invested in character psychology. Some of these fics are written just as well as the material that these characters are from. Some people insist that Rise of the Brave Tangled Frozen Dragons is still crack by definition because the characters never met canonically. Other people argue that the sheer volume of narrative labor elevates it beyond crack into a rare pair or crossover territory. This debate only demonstrates how crack ships completely destabilize traditional fandom categories. Once enough emotional investment is poured into a pairing, the label becomes less important than the experience. The issue with rare pair versus crack ship versus crossover is a lot. I don't consider Rise of the Brave Tangled Frozen Dragons a rare pair. A rare pair, by definition, is a ship where there's rarely any content, whether it be fan art or fan fiction, which makes them difficult to come across. And even early on, this was one of the biggest fandoms on Tumblr. There was lots of fan content for it. I would more so associate it with crossover in combination with a crack ship, a crack cross, if you will. By the mid to late 2010s and even to today, crack shipping has become more and more popular, but also people see it as an aesthetic. Canon interaction becomes optional. Characters are treated as modular symbols rather than fixed narrative entities. Crack ships are no longer mocking shipping culture. They are exploring what characters mean outside of their stories. As fandoms migrate to newer platforms, crack ships adapt instead of disappear. For example, on TikTok, they spread through edits, the music, the pacing. They all do the same work that long essays and fan fictions once did. A single TikTok edit can establish a crack ship without explanation, relying entirely on vibes and presumed chemistry. The Roderick Heffley and Regina George ship is such an amazing modern example of this. Ooh, Rodrina originates ironically, but was going crazy for weeks on TikTok and Instagram edits. What makes this so significant is not the ship itself, it's how it was received. It was going so crazy that Cosmopolitan was even like, y'all need to tap in. Y'all need to tap in, this is wonderful. Crack ships are no longer confined to niche spaces. They leak into pop culture commentary, framed as evidence of how fandoms operate modernly. Take me home tonight. I don't wanna let you go till you see the light. In the Rise of the Brave Tangled Frozen Dragons, the Lorax...
What the fuck did you just say? Yo, he looked like he's begging for...
Shock!
He's like, please, can I hit, please?
Oh, she's fading again. Her opacity is set at 50%. This is beautiful.
They're not in love.
What do you mean? What do you mean they're not in love? They're kissing.
Mario loves Peach, and Fix-It Felix likes his fucking lesbian girlfriend who's a space marine or something. I don't know. I didn't watch the movie, but I know she's taller than him, and he's like, goo goo gaga. Pick me up.
Well, obviously they're having an affair. Oh, they're frozen. Like the movie! Oh, they rekindled Airplane Reunion after years. This is when he turns into a hipster guy who owns a burger joint and she's queen of fucking...
Yeah, Mordecai looks like he sells garlic aioli for a $6.99 upcharge.
Yeah, Elsa looks... That's Anna. Holy fuck. 13-year-old me would have shot me with a gun.
A fucking Al Capone?
Where? Oh... Amidst all the panic, it's the Onceler and Captain Underpants. They're doing the La La Land movie poster.
He said, dude, I have to go get a matcha latte and I have to go fucking busk at the train station to make money. She's like, wow, a self-sufficient man.
I watched Captain Underpants with evil foreboding eye.
Is the tank engine?
This is the epitome of crack shipping. This is great. This is wonderful. This picture reminds me of the 3FS reaction. It's Neo Metal Sonic and Rainbow Dash with tits. She is a bad bitch in this. I can't deny. The rapper guy and Charlie Morningstar. I don't even know who the fuck the rapper guy is.
Charlie Morningstar is 100% a Has-Been Hotel character.
Yes.
If you put more Has-Been Hotel on the fucking screen right now, I'm gonna lose my mind.
Oh, there's a lot. There's a lot of Timmy Twilight mood boards over here.
Can I cuddle your OC's belly?
Yes. This is okay. This is really aging.
You have to look at the leg of By Curiosity.
I am. What is the leg of By Curiosity? Okay, this is Chris Crossovers. See, Daddy, help me? What? Whoa! 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 Whoa!
We're getting too deep, dude. We're getting too deep. We gotta back out now. Extract. Pull me out.
Knuckles too?
No, it's Has-Been Hotel. Get out now.
There's
Get
so much here. Is that Swiper and Nick Wilde? This is really well done. Swiper is usually a minor character in Dora the Explorer. He is not a true villain in most episodes he is in. He is just a fox that is usually there to swipe stuff. He is not the only character who swipes. In the special Friendship Day, we have a skunk named Fifi, a hyena named Sammy, and a bear named Boca, and a weasel named Yin Yin. In that episode, Swiper was actually a hero, and all those other characters were the ones who were trying to swipe. Who the fuck is this? With Mr. Peabody.
Don't make me laugh, I've been trying all night. You been shaking your
ass for like half of the night.
Real nice.
Fingers in his ass, fingers in his ass. Kanye West, he likes big fingers in his ass. Today, crack ships exist in this weird space where irony and sincerity can coexist. The core impulse of crack shipping remains unchanged. It resists canon authority. It rejects the ideas that stories have to have fixed meanings. This allows fandoms to create without permission. In a media landscape increasingly dominated by franchises and corporate storytelling, crack ships are one of the few fandom practices that remain uncontrollable. They cannot be marketed, they cannot be canonized, or fully commodified. They are nonsense by design. And that nonsense is the point. Crack shipping persists because fandoms persist, and as long as fans want to play with stories instead of just consuming them, crack shipping will exist, mutating to fit whatever platform comes next. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to subscribe and resist authority, create more crack ships, draw the Fallout Ghoul kissing Pomni Digital Circus with tongue. Okay, bye! Tug on this guy's balls and chap his lips now!